What do I have? I have 3. I have a quorum.
You have 3.
Well, give it another minute, then we'll start this meeting.
Okay. Who can CJ tell who is in the waiting for privilege of the floor? I'll just.
Yep. We have Susan Ruoff in the waiting room, waiting for privilege of the floor.
Oh, okay. I thought I was going to read that letter, but that would be great if she did.
You have the other letter, right?
No,
One from Mr. Sigler?
no. He told me he was coming.
Okay.
So,
CJ, you can hear Debbie all right?
Great, actually. Yeah.
Okay, perfect.
this is still really sticky up here.
Bad.
Is that from the spring?
Yeah,
From the fogging?
but we wiped it up after that.
Well, and I wiped it up with some other stuff that didn't help either.
We wiped it too.
I know it's the potatoes sometimes. It's sticky. Yes, ma'am.
Are we, we're live streaming now. Should I
You sure
pause
are.
that? No.
No, it's okay. This is like ad-lib. This is like the outtakes. You're fine. I'm gonna
Oh, I
get.
see. Okay. Here's Joe.
We have 3 for a quorum. I think we should get started. It's past 6:30.
Joe is entering now.
All right. I'd like to call this meeting to order at 6:32. Will you please rise and pledge allegiance to the flag? Allegiance to the flag. United States of America. To the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Mrs. Munson, roll call.
Andrew Benson. Here. Doug Dake. Is he here? Bronwyn Losey.
Here.
Joseph Wetmore.
Here.
Edward Levine.
Here. Okay. First order of business here, it's item 4 in your docket, is draft 2019 audit presentation by Insero and Company by Pat Jordan. I'm gonna step up here and give us the highlights. Yep, you're fine. Just speak clearly into the microphone and away we go.
So we have completed our 2019 audit of the town financial audit. Delivered print copies of the drafts last Friday. I believe electronic copies went out at that time as well. Met with Mr. Levine and Charmaine on Friday, went over the preliminary draft, and we don't have any open items on our side. We have all the financial information we need from, such as bullet point has been incorporated this time. First round of the draft. Basically just a preliminary overview of the results, and I expect that since you just got it Friday, we'll have a chance to go through it over the next month and come back in the October meeting. I think try to do the same sort of thing. If you have questions prior to that meeting, like accumulate those and have a response so that it is in shape at that point to have a possible a vote to accept it at that time at that meeting.
In the email that was sent out, do they have your email address so they can ask you questions? Or should they send them to Charmaine and we can basically forward them on to you and CC everybody? How do you want that handled?
I can send, I can ask Charmaine, send something out, just an overview of this, what we're trying to do, and then I have my email. I don't think it was in the draft that was sent out. I don't think unless it's forwarded straight from.
Well, let's just be certain and do it again.
Or admin.
Yep. Let's just do it again with your email. And that way we'll have everybody in the loop. And if they have questions, they can send them to you. And that way you'll have plenty of time to address them, okay?
So, yeah, as I said, try to go through just the highlights tonight. Give you a chance to go through it in the next few weeks. So we have the standard documents that we're accustomed to start from the executive summary that really summarizes all of the documents, the letters, the main audit report, justice court and all. So I'd like to just talk from that really for tonight. second page in, page 1 of the executive summary. Again, starting with the very top, basic financial statements, the independent auditor's report, which is the first page in that document covering all the financials, footnote disclosures, management's discussion and analysis. So it's an unmodified opinion, which is a clean opinion. It's what you want to have. There's no departures from generally accepted accounting principles. There's also part of that independent auditor's report on supplementary financial information. Same results. It's unmodified opinion. Everything is presented in these reports to the accounting standards. At the end of the report, there's a report on internal control over financial reporting and compliance, laws and regulations, in accordance with government auditing standards, because it is a governmental audit position. It's not a internal control. It's a report that we review internal controls, let they know the policies, procedures, we use those. That covers financial information in order to render our opinion. It's not something that we issue an opinion that the internal controls are fairly stated in all the three ways. Just the issue that we saw will be presented in that letter. We didn't have anything to present as far as internal control weaknesses, significant deficiencies, and also the raw material compliance issues at all with laws and regulations. That's the main list. We have a little part of the reports. There's a separate communication with those charged with governance. There's
I want to interrupt here because I'm really having trouble hearing him. It's mostly garbled and I'm unable to make out most of what he's saying.
Okay, so can you speak a little slower, Pat, and just right into the microphone, okay?
Okay. So I was starting to talk about the second document. As part of the package is our communication with those charged with governance. That's a required letter that's for all audits, all industries, and nonprofit, for-profit government entity. It summarizes the qualitative aspects, which includes where you find accounting policies. All the accounting policies are addressed in note 1 to the financial statements. There's several pages of those accounting policies, pretty much standard for governance. Whether you had to adopt any new standards, governmental law accounting standards, which you did not have to this year. Past few years, there were quite a few that had to be adopted. Any estimates you point out in that letter? There's some estimates related primarily to the items that what we call the government-wide statements that take your fund financial statements and add in infrastructure and retirement obligations that are provided by the state. Post-employment benefit obligations are your actuarial return, calculation of retiree health insurance, present value of that, and also assumptions on current employees and probability that they'll retire and get that benefit also. So there's some estimates about obviously the actuarial assumptions and what's provided by the state retirement system. The other thing there is we also bring in your capital assets, which are your land buildings, infrastructure, equipment, and all. There's an estimate there, the life expectancy of all of those assets. I'll appreciate those items. And again, government-wide, which does not affect your funds, your general fund, your highway. I will reconciliation, the last page of this document, which kind of walks you from the total fund balances to what gets added in for this government-wide presentation. The rest of that, the third bullet down, correcting misstatements, disagreements with management representations, and all that. It's just if you had any problems that you encountered performing the audit, anything that we had to correct, any disagreements with management, other consultations with other accountants based on how we're going to treat something. So the rest of it is good. Good recap of the audit process went very well. There's nothing impressive in those items. It's a little bit done differently this year. Obviously, we did a lot of our audit process remotely. We did come on site for a couple of days for the town piece, and also more so report, justice court files that we examined all. So again, everything, most of the documents had to be uploaded through a share file portal to us, and that was done well in advance. We really appreciate all that. Charmaine and everybody else who helped with that. We had really prepared the audit process from day one to have all that documentation ready in our file ready for the audit. There's a management comment letter. It's the next document. And that again talks more about internal controls, compliance with laws and regulations. It's not required. We had some follow-up items that we considered just incidental recommendations from prior years, not anything significant material. And both of those items were resolved. So we were able to restate the comment and the fact that in both cases, in town board put in place procedures to eliminate those concerns, and we didn't have any other new recommendations that we had put in the letter for you to follow on. The last item is the justice court audit. It's just a really simple letter about what our procedures for reviewing the incoming fines, bails, et cetera, and making sure that they were appropriately distributed to the proper end sources, state, the town. And we didn't have any, nothing at all came up in that audit process for the justice court with that report. So that really covers all of the various reports and opinions that we issued. Everything, again, very positive for the reports. There is as part of this executive summary, there's a 5-year picture, really condensed version of each of the funds, starting with general townwide, general fund outside village, and same the 2 highway funds, and water sewer. Really won't talk too much about that. It's pretty consistent overall. Over the 5-year period, we did spend down some of the funds, more specifically general fund this year, was spent down by about 782,000. It still has a balance of 1.29. I'm just talking about a couple of things. A big part of that is some transfers, some appropriations that were made to move some money over to the highway to set up some reserves for the most part. So those are in restricted funds in the highway at this time. The excess of expenditures over revenues prior to the transfers of other funds was 300,000. So in ending balances for all the funds are at least at that 6 month of your expenditures, operating expenditures for the year, which is kind of a guide or ballpark figure you want to be at. Nothing else really stood out in the funds that really warrants more discussion here. If there anything comes up in review in the next few weeks, that should be a question on that. The very last page of the executive summary is that bridge from all of your funds, which I'd like to expand a little bit further, that can be the prior fund balances for each of the fund in the current year, all in one place.
Patrick, could I just ask what page are you on?
This is 14 of the executive summary, so I just kind of skimmed through the 5-year, and that's the trend financials over the 5-year period. Just highlighting the one item in general, and then 14, which does show you your total fund balances at the end of the year. Across the board was 2,688,130, and from there we assist with this conversions, this government accounting standard conversion to add in capital assets of 12,142,075, energy infrastructure, utilities, etc., depreciated net basis, and also here you have in addition to the Bolton Point equity interest. So that is another 1.6 million that's considered an asset of yours, government-wide. Again, not showing up in your funds at all, it's just on this primary statement for the government does have to be included. That grew by about 50,000. So the the asset value at focal point was 250,000 higher this year, split 5 ways, so you're one of 5 participants, and your share was a growth of about 50,000. And on the flip side, there's deductions from, from the fund financial statements for bonds payable of 540,000, installment purchase debt, 134,000. For interest on bonds, compensated absences, your ERS liability and related deferred inflows and outflows, that's 124,000. And the big item there is the post-retirement, post-employment benefit of the retired health insurance, and including deferred inflows and outflows. That actually deducts from your fund balances 2.3 million. So that really is a good offset of capital assets, is that all entities is that post-employment obligation. So that's the general overview. Again, I know you don't have that long, so I just wanted to have an idea that it was a positive process again, working remotely, no real concerns, and results, no findings, after report that mentioned comment letter, compliance letter and all. So summarize that was all in good shape. Books, records, and audit documentation trail, very readily available, easy to follow. So thank you for everybody for assisting in the audit process. Again, the approach that we have to go through this year.
Well, I thought you did a great job. You gave us some great guidance from last year. We can go into some more detail at our next meeting. So we'll put you on the agenda for our October meeting also. In the meantime, we can, once again, we'll do if you send out the email to us, and we'll start the emails chain so that any questions come up, everyone will be CC'd. That will give you ample time to answer those questions, and we'll go from there, and we'll see you next month.
I've got a couple of questions here, Ed.
Okay, this really wasn't the time to do it, but if you want to, as long as you don't put him on the spot, go ahead.
I'm looking at the report, page 4B on the first line. It says the town's combined position increased from $13 million to $12 million. And I'm confused by that.
Position.
Page 4B.
The last line, total position, the chart, figure 1.
Which page are you on, Pat?
The first line in the paragraph. 4B.
Okay.
I don't see
I don't see a
First
4B.
paragraph.
I don't see a 4B.
Are you talking about the summary, or are you talking about different? You're actually talking about the actual,
I'm talking about the report,
Okay.
the
okay,
actual report.
thank you.
The first paragraph, the town as a whole, right? To combine that position for the year ended December 31st, 19, increase from 13,414,777 to 12,915,460. That's correct. It should be decreased. Thank you.
Okay,
And that is
and
shown.
I assume,
Joe, let him finish, please.
Yeah,
okay,
that's just walking through the changes, dollar change, percentage changes down in the table at the bottom. But thank you for catching that.
and on the next page, the last line should be a decrease as well. Page 4C.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I guess we're all set then. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you.
See you next month. Okay, item number 5 in your packet is privilege of the floor. As you know, this is a limit of 3 minutes. We have someone in the room waiting for privilege of the floor. See, hello, Doug.
Oh, it's Doug.
Yes.
Yes.
We have Becca Levenheim. Hold just a moment, please. Okay, Becca, you're admitted to privilege of the floor.
I don't have anything to say right now. I was just calling in. Sorry.
Oh, yeah, no worries. Thank you.
Okay, CJ, is there anyone else that has privilege of the floor is waiting?
Nope, nobody else in the waiting room currently.
What happened to,
Sue was here and then she was gone.
Okay, so I guess we'll move on then.
well, I should read the letter that they sent me.
Okay, go ahead.
Let me know if you can't hear me. Received a letter from Schrader family, Ruhoff family, and Eisenhunt family. And it's addressed to the Lansing Town Board and Lansing Planning Board. Dear board members, as residents and business owners within the town of Lansing, we are sharing our concern regarding the proposed new development of a dollar store in North Lansing. From review of the submitted plans and public information provided to the community, it appears a Dollar General is being proposed near the northern edge of Lansing along Route 34, north of Lock Road, tax parcel number 5.-1-32. We urge town and planning board members to move slowly and carefully through this process and ensure that the long-term interests of our community are properly served. Municipalities across the United States have taken action to restrict the proliferation of formula businesses due to the detrimental impact they have on the community. Dollar General currently has a store within the town center area. Dollar General, Lansing Market, Marabido, and C Plus Convenience Store provide retail offerings within the town. All of these businesses compete and provide services knowing that Target, BJ's, Tops, dollar stores, and pharmacies are within close proximity in a well-defined commercial district of the village of Lansing. Allowing Dollar General to add a second location in our town only 6 miles from its current location will not serve our community goals of controlled development and sustainable community-minded services. The proposed location is not within a business district. It is in an area intended for agricultural use. Although general retail is a permitted use, it is not in the best interest of the community to perpetuate sprawl of such formula-driven retailers beyond distinctly defined business areas. Of additional concern is the impact a second Dollar General will have on locally owned businesses that were initiated in support of the town's comprehensive plan for a town center. Lansing Market currently competes with Dollar General in the town as well as much larger retailers located in the village. Competition is expected and it forces businesses to focus on products and services of interest to the community. Adding a second Dollar General would negatively impact Lansing Market and the unique services it provides within the town. It is ironic, there is a chart here, but obviously I can't really read that, between services, what the Lansing Market provides and what Dollar General provides. It is ironic that a second Dollar General is being proposed in an agriculture district of our town, one with significant value to our community for the dairy products it produces. Yet the dairy and egg products that will be sold within this Dollar General are exclusively from the Southeast and similarly distant areas of the United States, not from our town, not our neighboring counties, not from upstate New York. Our commitment to the community is longstanding and significant through support of the Lansing Food Pantry, Lansing's Girl Scout and Boy Scout troops, the Salvation Army, Lansing Recreation Department athletic programs, Community Recreation Center, Lansing Central School District Arts and Athletic Programs, and Friends of Lansing Center Trails. We are concerned members of the community who are willing to assist our town and planning board members through this process. We appreciate your time and dedication to serving the residents of Lansing, New York. Sincerely, Schraber family, Ruhoff family, and Eisenhunt family.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone else for the privilege of the floor? If not, we'll move on to 5A, which are the optional board member responses, maximum 2 minutes if somebody wants to respond.
I'd like to respond to
Those with the order.
excuse me?
Joe, you're getting a lot of feedback. I'm afraid. You-
They forwarded along. I found them very informative and appreciate the added information.
I have no idea what to say.
Okay. Andrea?
Yeah, I'd like to respond to the letter that Toby read. from the three-
I'm just expressing
That I think we have to look long and hard before we do consider having another Dollar General in our town. It seems like it's extremely unnecessary. It also seems that maybe placing it on the border with another county and another town. I can't imagine that Cuba County has more strict zoning than we do. But it seems like it would benefit the people north of us and not the people in our town. And also, I don't feel that agriculture, and that's good agricultural land, should be used to put up a store that is not necessary at all in our town.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments? If not, we'll move on. Okay, item 6 in your packet is the Lansing Community Library Report, which you have. And item 7 is the Lansing Youth Service Report. Item 8 is Mike Sigler's County Legislative Report. Number 9 is the Park and Rec Report by Pat Terrell. Item 10 is our slot for the Highway Superintendent Report. Agenda item number 11 is CJ's report. CJ, do you have any comments on the report?
No, I don't believe so. But I did send along the 2021 work plan and just looking for feedback on that, not necessarily right now, but in the near future.
Okay,
Thank you. If there's any questions.
Agenda item number 12 is the engineer's report. Agenda 13 is the agricultural report. Agenda 14, town clerk presents the tentative 2021 town of Lansing budget.
Okay,
So, Mrs. Munson,
I have that in my stack right here somewhere.
awesome.
So I have the tentative budget for fiscal year 2021 for the town of Lansing, which I am now formally presenting to the town board. There's a copy of this in each of the town board's mailboxes, was put in there earlier today. And Charmaine told me that she would be emailing this out to all the town board members tomorrow.
Okay. You also have a meeting, I think scheduled, right? For,
Yes,
you want to go through those also? We have
sure.
a schedule in our packet too.
So we have, I was going to just go over the schedule briefly here, the budget schedule. The next step is that the town board will review, modify, and put changes in writing. And that will be discussed at the next scheduled town board meeting, which is for September 30th. That was previously scheduled back in January. That's 2 weeks from tonight. And then the following regular town board meeting on the 21st of October, we will have a resolution to approve the changes. And at that point, the tentative budget will be moved to a preliminary budget. And on November 4th, there will be another additional town board meeting, which again was already pre-scheduled back in January. And at that time, we will have a budget public hearing at that meeting and a final budget approval.
So Charmaine will also send out the 5-year spreadsheets that we've had in the past. They'll show you what 5 years of expenses and revenues are, so you can look at the trends. Once again, feel free to email her any questions you have. Make sure, and we'll make sure all the board members will see those questions and answers. At this time, it is below the tax cap by 36,000. So if we maintain below the tax cap, we'll have to do another resolution to undo the first resolution so that we will stay underneath the tax cap as opposed to override the tax cap. And you can look over the budget and have your questions and comments, and we can go from there. So, having said that,
I just want to say I appreciate you coming in with the budget below the county preliminary budget is significantly above the tax cap.
okay, thank you. If there's no other comments, our consent agenda is next. And we have a question about one of the consent agendas.
Wasn't it taken off?
I didn't think there was any questions about anything that I left down there.
No, this came at the end of the day today, so my apologies. Something we're gonna have to perhaps discuss, and that is the license. Is that what you want to discuss? You want to leave
I
the way
thought
it
that
is?
came off.
What license are you talking
You mean
about?
the lease?
Correct.
The lease is not part of that.
It's been taken off?
Yeah.
You mean for up the road?
Correct.
That's its own resolution.
All right, never mind then. You're way ahead of me. Thank you. All right, now we'll move on to the,
17.
okay, thank you. We move on to the consent agenda.
I'll move it.
I'll second.
Okay,
Was that too quick?
no, you're fine.
Okay, so-
We're gonna go off tempo here. Nothing wrong with that. In fact, we're gonna hook onto your engine. You can drive this thing for a while. Okay,
Sorry, please. So Doug, did you do the second? I couldn't hear.
yes.
I did.
Thank you.
So I guess we'll start reading.
Okay, want me to start?
Yes.
Consent agenda. Motion approving highway superintendent's plan to discontinue and abandon terminus and Forest Acres Drive. Motion conditionally allowing Rochester's Cornerstone Group limited access to town center parcel J. Resolution authorizing town supervisor to execute stormwater management study agreement for town center. Resolution establishing 2021 water rates for the town of Lansing Consolidated Water District and users, thereof including district extensions and outside users.
Well, yeah, we got two more. Keep going. I got a hot hand here.
Resolution urging New York State to allocate funding to the local municipalities to support the provision of rural emergency services. And the last one is resolution approving audit and budget modifications and supervisors report.
Okay, Ms. Munson?
So this vote is for motions number 20 to 21 and resolutions 20-119 to 21-22. Andrew Benson,
Yes.
Doug Day,
Yes.
Bronwyn Losi,
Yes.
Joseph Wetmore,
Yes.
Edward Levine,
Yes. Agenda item number 16 is the resolution adopting Town of Lansing COVID-19 leave time and travel policies. Someone like to move that? I will. Is there a second?
Second.
Sure.
I'll second.
No, it wasn't in. Okay.
Ed Brown, second.
Okay, so Brown, you seconded it. Next time I'll wait another 3-4 seconds. So there was a motion by myself, Brown seconded. Is there any further discussion?
Only that it's very thorough. I think it's excellent.
My compliments to everyone who made a contribution to this. And that includes the board members and all the different department heads. They all had a chance to have their eyes on it. And a special thanks to our town attorney, who once again made a lot of lemonade out of these lemons. So much appreciated, guy. One thing I've been criticized in the past for bringing our attorney in on some of these things, but my personal opinion is that if God forbid something goes south, he's the one who's going to have to defend us. Why not have his eyes on it also? So that's just my personal opinion. Any other further discussion?
I had someone contact me, a town employee. I guess they just got it at the highway barn today before they left work. And they had some questions. I tried to answer them as best I could, but I don't know if there's a way to put the more layman's terms to this so they can understand it.
It's not a bad idea to have maybe a summary that's in words that are a little more common and understandable. It's not a bad idea.
Do they have any specific questions, Doug?
Not really. It's just that, when you read through the legalese of this, it can get confusing. And if you're looking at it for the first time, as you're getting in your vehicle to leave, I guess that would be the only question. I guess they got to digest it a little bit. I read it several times and I feel pretty comfortable with it, although it doesn't apply to me like it does to them. Because I'm not in their situation, so to speak. So I suppose I like Andra's idea about a summary of basically, if you do this, then you do that type thing. That might clear up a lot of question.
I think a lot of these questions, actually, not to disagree with you, a lot of these questions should be directed towards their department heads because.
That was done as well.
Okay.
And, I'm not sure what happened, but.
CJ? Hey, Ed?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, this is Mike.
Hi, Mike.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Hey, this is Mike Mosley. How you guys doing this evening?
Good, my friend. How are you?
Good, good. So I was forced in order to hand this resolution out prior to you guys approving because people are leaving the state, which puts other employees in a sticky situation. There are a total of 4 to 5 town employees which are going to Virginia, which is considered a hot state. Whether they were leaving yesterday or not put me in a position where I at least wanted to show them something that was a rough draft that you guys hadn't voted on. Not every one of my employees had come to me right away to say they were leaving, and I didn't find out until probably close to 3:30 whether they were going to be at work tomorrow or they were absolutely leaving the state. a lot of what you're reading follows the CDC, the New York State Health Department guidelines. If you were to go to those two websites, you would read that. I think there was a lot of effort put in on this. There is a lot of employees who are scared and nervous. So I think it covers all the bases quite well. It wasn't for the lack of the highway department, being Cricket or myself, not informing or sharing to the best of our ability this resolution until you guys voted on it. But you can understand the situation I was put in by guys wanting to leave the state and not coming to work tomorrow, and the vote being tonight.
Well, this is the
I-
first,
That's about it.
this is the first I've heard somebody's leaving before tomorrow.
Well, I had, there's guys not coming in to work tomorrow. You know, how am I supposed to get them the paperwork if they're not coming in?
Sure.
I believe a couple of them are leaving tomorrow, you know, so.
Okay. Anything else, Mike?
No, that's it. I just, you know, just wanted to clear the air. There's nothing underhanded from our department. Our door is always open. And I think Cricket's and my stance is, you know, we want everyone to be safe. We want everyone to have the freedom they would like to have while making sure that it's a safe environment for all town employees. That's it.
Okay.
Thanks for giving us that context.
Thanks,
You're
Mike.
welcome.
Mike, in no way did I imply that that was a problem. I just think it's a factor of exactly how the timing worked out on it, so.
Gotcha.
It's my understanding that if people go to a restricted state, they have to quarantine themselves when they come back. And that's state regulations. That has nothing to do with us.
Guy, you want to chime in on here? And I will, first of all, comment, when people say plain English, I don't know what that means. When somebody can understand something, someone can't. I'm not being derogatory when I say that. You know, we all have a certain language, and legalese is the language I sometimes need help with myself, but there are resources to do that, whether it be department heads or whether it be reaching out to the supervisor or to the bookkeeper or to the town's attorney for interpretation. And I don't know how we go about implementing that, whatever plain English, plain languages, because that is a subjective opinion by someone. So I don't know how you would craft that myself. It might be a question that we send off on an email to Guy, or does this mean? What does this mean? Or maybe someone like Michael or Cricket at the department head of the town, or someone like myself that come to me and said, I want to do this, this, and this, can I do this? And we'll get an answer for them. But when they say plain English, I don't know what that means, because that is their opinion what plain English is. And we all have different opinions as far as that goes. So anyways, Guy, you want to chime in?
Well, only just to amplify what Joe said, basically that if you look at the way New York State has structured this issue, there are, I believe, currently 8 different categories that you could fall into if you go to a restricted country on the CDC list or a restricted state on the Department of Health list. And the rules vary based on whether you are merely passing through for less than 24 hours, doing something other than passing through for up to 36 hours, or a long-term stay, as well as what your purpose is for being there. In other words, a healthcare worker or first responder going to a hotspot to provide assistance is treated differently than a casual traveler, regardless of what their personal subjective purpose for going is. For example, I'd love to go visit my 94-year-old mother, but Ohio's a prohibited state. If I go, unless I'm home, I could not visit a quote-unquote nursing home and be a 24-hour pass-through traveler, even if I was only across the border from Pennsylvania to Ohio for an hour, because you're only allowed to have outdoor visits for not more than 20 minutes. But I'd have to quarantine for 14 days or less upon my return. So New York State has all these classifications, and what the town has done, looking at all of those rules and other samples that are out there and trying to balance the interests of workers who have events or places they want to go versus the safety of workers that they would be returning to, is I think the town trying to strike a balance between either you quarantine for the 14 days or you show a positive negative COVID test. And obviously, given the failure rate of the rapid test, the town, or at least I recommend that the town accept only a full test, not a rapid test, because their accuracy rate is running like something like less than 30%. I'm sure they'll improve the quality of that test shortly. So the people that return can either quarantine for 14 days or not. Now, Executive Order 202.60 identified a gap that I had already identified, because if you go to a CDC prohibited country and come back sick or come back and test positive, because you could go when you're already positive, you just wouldn't. How do you make that call? If you go to a CDC hotspot, i.e. a foreign country, and you take a positive test, then you are ineligible for any of the benefits that they have passed by law. In other words, the up to 14 additional days of paid leave that you're entitled to, which varies depending upon the size of the employer, type of employer, et cetera. Executive Order 202.60 split the gap, because previously there was no such rule, i.e. loss of benefits if you went to a prohibited state and then tested positive. And so Joe is correct. The governor's executive order said, you step in harm's way and get sick, we're not giving you the benefits. And the town is basically saying, well, we'll let you use your leave time, that's what it's for. So whether that's the right balance between the needs of the employees versus the needs of the town, and frankly, the citizens of the town, that's really for the board to decide. I would point out that as this situation is fluid, you probably will, as the months proceed and additional rules come out, adjust this formula to match whatever it is New York State is mandating. I just wouldn't want to get in a lockstep with any one definition. Just refer to the general rules, set forth what the town's policy is, and then adjust as the law or the regulations change. So whether or not this is the right policy to start with or the right policy to end with, I think this is going to be an issue that you will be reviewing year to monthly until 2021. That seems to be the trend that is occurring. So hopefully we'll stay below 1%. This will all lift up soon, but for now, most of what's in there is straight out of the New York State Department of Health guidelines.
So hypothetically, if we did nothing, there still are guidelines in place to the executive orders from the governor. Is that correct?
Well, yes and no. The key distinction is that the governor's executive orders really deal with some of the distinction between essential and non-essential personnel as defined by prior executive orders and the Empire State Development Corp. But municipalities, because governmental agencies, public authorities, and government corporations were deemed essential businesses, governments individually had to determine who was essential and who was not essential under 202.4, and you'll remember that chart. But Lansing has and most towns, other than certain areas of New York City, which may still have some restrictions, but we're full back to work if we want to. We're still supposed to encourage people that are symptomatic or who feel they might be sick or who can work at home. To the extent that you can reasonably accommodate that, you're supposed to encourage it, but it's no longer a mandate. So we don't really technically have essential and non-essential employees under Executive Order 202.4. That order's largely been lifted. But certainly there is a distinction still between
if you want to make it between essential and non-essential employees. Unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on where you come down on that issue, the fact that you may or may not be an essential employee doesn't do a darn thing to protect your coworkers if you step in harm's way. So the other municipalities in our county, for the very most part, have said, we don't make a distinction. If you go, certainly you can use your leave time, but you're gonna need to either quarantine or provide a test if you go to an area that's a known hotspot. And the stickier questions actually come up, and I've had this actually happen. What happens if you leave to a state that's non-quarantined, and while you're there, it's designated? Then what? And those are the tougher questions. At least we don't have to tackle that one yet, because the state where I believe people are going, and most of the states that they will travel through to get there are all listed. So,
Okay.
it's an unfortunate circumstance, but, you know, I'm not sure I agree with the constitutionality of some of the travel restrictions, but on the other side of the coin, we're not going to change the governor's mind here in Lansing. So we'll just follow their rules and pray for the best.
Okay. Anybody else have any questions for Guy? Okay. I think we need to move forward on this. Yeah, we haven't, no one's made the,
Yeah. Ed and,
Brown? Okay,
Brown.
thank you.
Yeah.
I guess we go to a vote now then. Once again, I don't know what plain English is to somebody, because it's different to somebody else. So I have,
Guy was very good.
yeah, I have empathy towards people who find this confusing, as I do, also. But on the other hand, who decides what is, go ahead.
Yeah, you can adopt a policy and then work on a plainer English version if you think people don't understand it. But unfortunately, the language that's used by the health department and the executive orders are actually, in some respects, harder to understand. So I think that Mike touched on part of an essential truth there, and Doug mentioned the same thing. If you just review it quickly the first time, it's not really going to sink in. But if someone wants to work on a simpler version of it, that's fine. That may be a great idea, but just make sure that at all points you say that the actual written policy governs. Because summary descriptions of benefit plans are binding, so you have to be careful when you make a summary.
So to your point earlier, this is an ongoing document. And it is evolving as the days and months go on. And since it was Andra and Doug that brought up the concerns, you two want to work on this plain English, we can pass it. We can pass it now, and we can have this continuing dialogue back and forth with emails, whatever, as long as the document, in your words, holds true. But if you want to put it into plain English, quote unquote, and bounce it around to different people to say, does this resonate with you now? Because, you know, some people see 6 and some people say half a dozen. And I don't mind doing that.
But if it's gonna change, I don't see.
It won't change because the document, if we pass this document tonight, that is what governs it. I think what you're trying to do is put it into a more palatable type of phrasing for people, but it will not deviate away from what this policy is.
I understand that, but I also understand that the highway department really should take this on and not me, since they are dealing with employees they know very well, and I don't know them.
Well, I think if you work with them and you'll get to know them better and you go from there, I think it's a great opportunity for both of you to show me what plain English is.
Let me ask a quick question of Guy here. My understanding of what we're doing with this resolution is to basically take what New York State says we have to do, put it into rules, and then tell our employees how they can use leave time and give them some additional leave time around those rules. So the only change we're doing from the New York State rules is giving some leave and clarifying what leave can be used for what.
Well, basically, I mean, we basically took a few documents as we have massaged this, and there's been a lot of massagers involved with this. And part of it was the town of Ithaca policy. Part of it was the policy that I think that first started with either Pat Terrell and Brownwood and you, Joe, maybe. Was the executive orders. So we try to weave that all in together because we have to follow the executive orders to a certain extent. We also try to expand that into this area here. So having said that, I think you paraphrased it well. Once again, I think this policy needs to be passed, and then it can be, for lack of a better phrase, translated into from legalese into, like we say, Anglaise. So on that note.
And Joe, I would agree that to the extent that the town is making an election, it's making the election to extend the additional 14 days leave for people that get sick or are required to care for someone in their family that gets sick. So we're basically following the trend that did the expansion on the Family Medical Leave Act, but following the requirements of the state law, we're not granting that benefit because we're prohibited from doing so for people that voluntarily become sick, for lack of a better term. I don't think anyone's going somewhere with the intention of getting sick, but the executive order says if you go, you cannot get coverage, and that's also in the law, the actual law that was adopted. So if they change that, then the town can consider changing its policies, but it's a moving target, and I think what Andra may have said earlier is a summary may not make sense if we know that this policy is likely to change on a month-to-month basis.
You got your out. The other thing to please consider is the different department heads. They have to consider also, you have 4 of your employees leaving, you may not see them for an additional 14 days. It isn't the fact that they're going to go someplace for 3 days and come back. They go to a hot spot. Next you know, you may not be able to see them for 17 days. And so that's another thing to consider when they're asking for time off. So there's both sides of this when you look at it. Not so much, not only for the person that's leaving, but also for the person who has to keep that department functioning along the way. Having said that, any other comments? Mrs. Munson?
Okay. Andrew Benson,
Yes.
Doug Day,
Yes.
Bronwyn Losi,
Yes.
Joseph Wetmore,
Yes.
Ed Levine.
Yes. Next item up, I would like to do that later on in the evening. We have some discussion in private for that.
Ed, could I jump in for just a second?
Yes, ma'am.
Just wanted to mention that somebody who wanted to speak at privilege of the floor is here now, and I wanted to see if you wanted to admit them or whether I should just take written comment.
Well, since these are unique situations, I think we should let that person speak.
Okay, hold just a moment. Thank you. Okay, Sean, go ahead and speak to the board. Just turn off your computer speakers if you would.
Okay, can you all hear me?
Yes.
Apologies for not being here at the other time. I just wanted to give an update on the Yeah, hi, can you hear me?
Just, you just have to disconnect the YouTube or turn off your computer speakers
Okay,
to reduce the
about that.
feedback there.
is this working better?
I can hear you.
No, I can't hear myself, so you just have to tell me. Thank you, Joe. So just a quick update. I'll just keep pressing on that. You all know about the construction at the DOT facility out my window here. And the impact that it's been having. I just wanted to kind of update everybody. Yesterday, they sold the lot down on the waterfront. I think many of you might have seen it, 3.9 million or something like that to Our Not Realty. And they don't have a specific plan of what they're going to do. So this process by which our home values and Justin's home and of course the Kennedy Smiths, who are neighbors to this, and the Reeds, has been declining rapidly, and our quality of life has been declining with every truck that battles through there. I mean, every single time a dump truck empties its load, this dog barks, which is why I just closed my door. And that's going to continue. So obviously the group was lied to by the consultants that were hired, and I pointed this out clearly. They said there was going to be a 2% or a 2 decibel increase in sound when they did this thing, and just absurd on its face, and it's continuing to be a pain in the ass to all of us. So that also being said, now there's going to be a huge development increasing the value of the whole waterfront and the inlet, and it's on our backs. There's been nothing to do to compensate us. That money is going to be transferred obviously to the county, I guess, and not to Lansing, and certainly not to the homeowners that are being affected by it directly. Yet we're going to be encountering even more traffic and more trucks and more sound. Literally, we can see that unbelievably sized structure. I had no idea I'd be able to see it from my yard, and the lights that are up above it as well, all the way down Hillcrest here too. So what we said when we were protesting this a year and a half ago has come true. It's completely obtrusive. There's no compensation for those of us who are suffering from it. And in fact, no one's actually spoken up about it. If I didn't ask about the sale of the land to find out what was happening with this process yesterday, I wouldn't have known about that as well too. I would hope that the town of Lansing would continue to step up and do something. There's lots of different things you can do to actually acknowledge this. Instead, we gave the approval and the waiver to get sewer over to them and electric over to them, which also disrupted the land behind us here, and still nothing for us. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. 2 minutes. Anybody want to comment on that from the town board?
I would hope that the town of Lansing would continue to step up and do something.
I got a comment.
Okay.
I kind of feel this was shoved down our throat. I said that before, and I'll say it again, and I'll stand by it. We had no say in this at all, other than agreeing with the state. So that's what I gotta say.
I have to agree with Doug that the state basically preempts the town when they come into our community and does things as they wish, and we had really no choice as to what was going to happen.
Anyone else?
I feel exactly the same. I just agree with them. It was very disturbing when I drive by it. It bothers me a lot, and I don't even live there, so, in that section of Lansing, so I'm very sorry, Sean.
Well, the unfortunate part is that we really don't have a say in it. We don't have a say in it with our code officer. We don't have a say in it with a lot of things. I would like the board to maybe start doing research, if we can, to find out is there anything we can do to help these people, because I think Sean makes a good point. The fact that I think it's the city of Ithaca gets 3.9 million, and what happens up here? Nothing. I find that quite interesting. There's no compensation whatsoever, and I can't promise you anything, but we will try to pursue what avenues we have. You had mentioned, Sean, that there's things that we can do. If you have suggestions, please email them to us. And maybe we can act upon them. Okay? Okay.
I just want to quickly say, I believe the money goes to New York State because I believe that's New York State land.
Okay, that's fine. If I misspoke, I apologize. But whoever the recipient is, that's something I think we should at least investigate to see what our potential actions could be.
It actually goes to Ithaca as well because the tax revenue will generate off of it. It's no longer state land, downtown anyway.
I don't want to put our attorney on the spot right now, but what I'd like to do is have a moment to research this and maybe we can come up with something, at least a comment by our next meeting. If there are no other comments, we will move forward. 18, which is the resolution authorizing town supervisor to execute parks, recreation, and trails master plan agreement with MJ Engineering.
I'll move that.
Second.
Any further discussion?
I'm sorry, that was Joe.
Right.
And was that you?
And no, it was Doug, correct? Doug, did you second?
No. Joe moved it, 100 seconded it.
Thank you. Any further comments on this? Well, let me premise by saying I'm in favor of this project. It's just a matter of where the money is going to be coming from. We do have some in our reserve right now. We may have to do a budget mod to move some over from the A fund to do this, because I think this would probably be a town-wide function. I don't think this would be a town minus a village function. CJ, can you give me a timeline when the amount of money needs to be paid? If you know, I don't want to put you on the spot. Is it something that can be paid over a few years, or is it something that needs to be paid within a few months?
No, the project timeline would start this year if the town board, of course, approves the execution of this agreement this evening. And then it would continue into 2021. So part of the plan would be paid this year and part next year. Half and half, I guess you could say.
Okay. Thank you. I think we have in our park and trailways reserve right now, we have a little bit over 44,000. And we're going to be needing a little bit more than that, I believe. So that's something for us to be looking for in the future for a budget mod on that. So having said that, is there any more discussion?
Is there any way to get a grant to help with that, CJ?
CJ, did you hear Andrew's comments?
Yeah, it's a good question. This is actually one of the few areas in planning where the grants tend to follow the plan rather than the other way around. Meaning if you are able to articulate your vision in a plan, that's when you really open up the potential funding by actually having kind of capital strategies for some of these longer term projects. So in fact, the federal dollars through things like Transportation Alternatives Program and a whole host of other essentially state and federal programs become open once you're able to articulate what it is actually that you want. So that's really why we're, along with the Department of Parks and Recreation, undertaking an effort like this. So.
Okay, thank you.
We have a healthy fund balance. It's just a matter of moving money around. And that was all intended when we first started this project. When we started that reserve fund, when Katrina Binkowitz, I think, was one of the people that was the driving force behind that. And that was a few years ago. So just a matter of not if, but when we need to move money. And that's fine. I think it's here $88,250. Is that what I'm reading here? So we got half. And we'll see how the end of the year goes. It'll be an interesting year this year, but I think we're going to be in good shape either way, because it was all planned out for. It's just a matter of which account that we move from. Having said that, Mrs. Munson?
Andrew Benson,
Yes.
Doug Day,
Yes.
Bronwyn Mosey,
Yes.
Joseph Wetmore,
Yes.
Edward Levine.
Yes. Okay, agenda item number 19. Resolution approving and authorizing the amendments and extension, oops, take that back. Resolution authorizing issuance of notice of award and execution of directional drilling contract for consolidated water district improvement project and consolidated water district extension number 5. Anyone like to move that?
I'll move it.
Anyone like to second it?
I'll second it.
Any further discussion? So this resolution is to allow the boring and directional drilling on Proville Road. You probably have seen that in the past, where they go and they push the pipes underneath and everything, so that this allows Cricket to, if we have a calm winter, God bless we do, that the highway department can get going on this right away. And now that we seem to have, for lack of a better term, are dealing with the virus, it's now time to crank it up again. And that means to be aggressive, getting these water districts back into place. They need this water desperately, and so does number 3, which we'll talk about later. But now it's time to crank it up. And I would like to be I would like to be proactive and reactive, so that if they have to wait till the spring, they're all ready to go now. If they can do it sooner, they will. So that's all the comments I have. Anybody else have comments? Mrs. Munson?
Andrew Benson,
Yes.
Doug Day,
Yes.
Bronwyn Mosey,
Yes.
Joseph Wetmore,
Yes.
Edward Levine.
Yes. Okay, now we're on the board member reports. So let's lead off with Andra.
Okay, I'm getting more comfortable with Zoom meetings, so I did go to quite a few of them. The CAC, which is the Conservation Advisory Committee. And it was a good one. Karen presented sort of a master plan. I should have written it down, I'm sorry. Can't remember the name. Joe would probably know. But where different members are taking pictures of different scenic spots in our town. Let's see if we can have this part of scenic overlay. Anyway, it was a very good meeting. And then I went on one with the Environmental Management Council, and that also was very good. A subcommittee, which I'm on from that one, which is the Outreach Committee, will be holding a communal Zoom meeting on October 7th. I think that's the right day, 7 to 8, open to everybody, and the topic will be environmental justice / racism. And they have 3 speakers, but I can't tell you the names because not everybody has committed 100%. But that should be a pretty interesting meeting. I guess that's about it. You have the library report and also the Lansing Youth Services, which meets tomorrow.
Okay, thank you. Bronwyn?
The zoning board didn't meet in September. The LACPPF attended the S-Power presentation and then had a follow-up conversation with folks, both representatives from S-Power and representatives from the power plant. and are continuing to discuss that and getting ready to be the ones to write a letter of support if the town decides that we want one drafted for the town board to send. Is the sound crazy for anyone else when I talk?
No, it's fine.
I hear
Okay,
a bit of
it's just me.
echo.
All right. Well, as long as you all are good. The Friends of Salt Point, most of what was discussed is covered in Pat's information. The IO meeting, we're going to talk a little bit. They've been looking for proposals for watershed-related projects, and CJ gave me information about one that's been passed on to them, and I just want to be sure that there aren't any others that we should be pushing in that direction. I went to most of a presentation, phone conversation with the Association of Towns and Tom DiNapoli today, and got some sort of basic orientation to budgeting in the time of COVID. And also the broadband committee, and Joe, I think it's probably going to cover that much more thoroughly, at least he did in the email that he sent out. So
Okay,
that about covers it.
Ron, I have a question for you. The power plant committee, for lack of a better term, they meet, is it the second Thursday of the month?
It has not been a regular meeting, has it, CJ? Am I wrong? But they're willing to meet within the next week or two to draft a letter if the town wants it.
Their standing meeting is the second Thursday of the month. Yes, but they are also going to attend the next Conservation Advisory Council meeting on Thursday, October 1st as well. So
Now they are an advisory board, is that correct?
they're an advisory committee. Yes.
Advisory committee. As an advisory committee, are they charged, part of their mission statement, to do letters of support, or would it be something that they would say, we do support this project and move forward? I mean, is it their responsibility to actually draft this letter? Or would that be something that the town board would have to compose, send out, and have the board approve it? Because we have a bit of a crunch here with time. And I think they have to be in by October 21st. Is that true, CJ, for the next year? The letters?
I'm not sure. I think so. Bronwyn might be able to answer that better.
I know that the committee is aware of a time crunch and would be planning on working within that time crunch. And my thinking is that they're the ones who know so much more about the details of the site and of the proposal, and we're able to tease out some really particular information from the folks at S-Power about what would support their proposal. And since it's they're tasked with advocating for the town, or not advocating, but advising the town board on what to do with this land, it makes the most sense to me for them to write the letter, to craft it, or send us, write the first draft for the town board to then approve of or not.
So this letter of support would say we either support this project or we don't, or would this be a negotiation for certain concessions?
My understanding is that it's a letter of support that would go to the granting agency. And so it could have all sorts of requests, but it's not a negotiation. It's just saying, we support this project, but maybe we have these concerns, or we support this project unequivocally, but it's not a direct conversation with the S-Power or the power company. It's just saying, we, the municipality, want this to happen.
I find it'd be the town board that actually would approve this letter of support or would conduct it. Let's just cut to the chase here. You know, the fly ash is not in their purview. That is a DEC supervision, and that is on the responsibility of the power plant. And I've heard in the
Right,
past,
when you say they, you mean S Power?
yes, S Power. All they want to do is lease this land and put these solar panels on there. It is. They have nothing to do with the fly ash. And the reason I'm bringing this up directly is because this comes up time and time again these last 2 weeks when people are talking to me. What about the fly ash? What about the fly ash? What about the fly ash? And I simply want to warn people that this is not a negotiating item. This is the same thing as the lead issue down in the Rod and Gun, where the EPA was the governing body to mitigate that solution. It's the same thing here. The DEC is the body that will mitigate this solution, and they have to approve it for the power company to move forward. S Power has nothing to do with this, as was stated, you know, many times at this presentation. And I'm hoping that they will focus on the benefits of the project and not on the other issues that some people are concerned with the power company. And to have a letter sent to us or a statement that they recommend this project, it's going to be a simple letter, in my opinion, that we either support this project or we don't, as far as that goes. If they have certain concerns about S Power, that's one thing. But I don't think it's appropriate for them to put concerns about the power plant down there, because they're simply trying to lease the land from them. And I hope you will convey that to them. Also, CJ, the same thing, because we're in a time crunch here. You know, in all fairness, the approval or the advice to this board needs to get going pretty fast, because we don't have a lot of time. We have a meeting on the 30th. It would be really nice to have that letter there. You know, it's a working meeting. We may have to change that into a regular meeting / working meeting and get this agenda out of the way. It would be nice to have this done in 2 weeks. If that means that they have to do it by email, whatever, or if they have to have a special meeting, then so be it. But my concern is that we won't have any letter of support for them when we needed to send to NYSERDA on time, and we missed our opportunity because we may have gone off on different directions. We need to focus on S Power, and only S Power, not on the power plant by asking situation. That's just my concern. So I think we need to move this timetable up to get a letter out.
I could speak a bit to the timetable if you'd like. Oh, sorry,
Yeah.
Joe. I don't want to
Yes,
interrupt
jump in, because like I said, I'm not pointing fingers. I'm simply saying that the window's pretty tight here. Nothing done.
Yeah, totally understood. So the Conservation Advisory Council and the Lansing Advisory Committee on the Power Plant Future are intending to meet together on Thursday, October 1st, to discuss the land at Bell Station. That's part of the project, presumably. I think they're just looking to kind of share thinking on that particular parcel, as it's been long identified as conservation oriented lands in the town. At least I don't know the specific language, it's in the comprehensive plan, but in any event, open space. And then the advisory committee on the power plant future is meeting again on the 8th, so exactly a week later. So I guess it would depend on the town board, because I think the letter is due on the 21st, and then your next meeting would be the 21st. So yeah, but I'm happy to help, coordinate whatever it is you'd like to accelerate, I suppose.
Well, my understanding is that the Bell Station land was a second thought, maybe an expansion of this project. But the first part of it, my understanding was to get S Power off the ground, and part of that was critical for the letters of support for NYSERDA. And I'm not dismissing the other group at the Bell Station land. Secondary phase, I believe, of the S Power. I mean, we need to get.
That's not my understanding.
From the presentation that I saw, they haven't even started negotiations with the Bell Station area. They're
Right.
right. I mean, And
Right, but the amount of land that they're talking about using wasn't phased. They weren't saying, oh, to my understanding is that they weren't saying, oh, we'll start on the power plant land and then we'll slowly grow. I think they're saying we want to do at least 100 megawatts, hopefully more like a 200 megawatt solar site here. And we're going to try and figure out how to get that land. I don't think it was starting on the power plant land and then figuring it out. Is my understanding of their plan.
so is it your impression that if they don't get the Bell Station land, this project doesn't go?
Is what?
Is it your impression that if they do not get any additional land besides the power plant land, that this project will not go?
I think that there's a lot of pieces. I know that they're talking to many landowners. They were saying they're hoping to stay, within a certain radius of the interconnection at the power plant. So I don't know that the Bell Station land would make it a no-go, but I think if they weren't able to aggregate enough land totally. CJ heard both presentations too, so she might be able to speak to that a bit.
Yeah, my understanding is that they're still working on various degrees of land assembly. It's obviously the land, like Bronwyn is saying, that's only the power plant land is not enough for the project of the magnitude that they're talking about. So presumably there's other lands heading west to, or heading east, I'm sorry, not west. Not going too far that way, but heading east to maybe Lansingville Road, Snooshall Road, I think I want to say. So I know they're looking at a broader geographic context than just that, based on the just sheer magnitude of the megawatts that they're talking about. So anyway.
So CJ, I'm going to rely on you on this. When do we need to have that letter to be sent out to NYSERDA?
That is still unclear, and I believe S-Power was going to give us some points that they believed that NYSERDA, the New York State Energy Research and Development Authority, needs to see as, I guess, some kind of evidence of support of the project. But I don't believe I've received anything from them as of yet, but I certainly will, pass it on to all parties as soon as I receive something.
I just want to step in here and say that we've created these boards and committees with a diverse group of Lansing residents to give us some various perspectives on various issues. And I really think it's important that we utilize them for issues like this, in which they're specifically working on the issue, and to get input from them on this letter, I think is hugely valuable. And I would like to see, both these committees, take a stab at it so that we get their input in this process.
When can they get a letter of support to the board? That's my question. I'm not disrespecting their abilities. I'm simply trying to get something done on a deadline here. And if we wait till the 21st, I don't think we'll be able to submit that letter at our town board meeting, because it has to be there to NYSERDA by then. That means we're going to call a special meeting, which means that the advisory boards are going to have something that the town board is going to have to look at before our October 21st meeting. That means we're going to have another meeting. I'm simply asking them to get something to me in a timely fashion so the town board can look it over.
Okay, yes, I'll, happy to reach out to them. I have their contact information from when they were here to visit. So happy to just get in touch with them and copy you, Ed, and just say we're curious about the letter that you're interested in us preparing. So that's it.
It sounds like the solar company's delaying this too, because they were supposed to get us a draft of some information they wanted in this letter, and they still haven't gotten us that basic information that they're looking for.
Well, to your point, Joe, I think now would be a really good time to reach out to S-Power and say, look, if you want a letter of support, can you give us some guidelines of what previous letters look like? I'm not saying that is the one written in stone that everybody has to agree on, but give them some sort of context that they can look at and say, okay, this is the kind of language that we're looking for, which would be extremely helpful. And I asked them specifically that night for that letter, they were going to send it to me quickly. Well, evidently we have different definitions of quickly. So tomorrow I will call them directly and say, look at, you either, it's fish or cut bait time. I'll be gentle here. There's other phrases I've said, but either fish or cut bait time. You want our support, you have to respect the advisory boards that we have, and you have to be able to let them look at these things and consider if this is the way they want to go with a recommendation or not. Does that sound fair?
I totally,
I also think,
go ahead. Go
I
ahead.
was just going to say, if we can push up the timeline and get the advisory boards or the advisory committees to come up with a draft by the 30th, I think that would be ideal, because then we are going to be meeting. But I also think that if we are able to review it ahead of time, calling another 5-minute emergency meeting because of this, so we're able to do it thoughtfully and taking advantage of the expertise that we are trying to listen to, I think that is an okay second option also.
So let's go with this action plan. First thing I'll do tomorrow is I will nudge, drag, or whatever I have to do to get a letter here. Okay, I'll support some examples. There might be more than one. And then I'll send them out as fast as I can to the town board members and CJ, and they can send them out to the appropriate committees to have time to review them and see if they want to tweak it or rewrite it entirely, whatever. Doesn't matter to me. But to your point, they want to ask for our help. It's been a week, right? Since the last meeting, since the presentation. Last Wednesday they did this. So it's been 7 days since they did their presentation here. That's plenty of time. So once again, I will be gentle, but I will be direct that we need to have this letter, like ASAP, sent to me so I can send it out to all the different board members and CJ, so they can send out to different advisory boards, and they can consider if that is the template they want to use, if they want to cut and paste, if they want to add things or whatever. Okay.
I would just add that we want to know if there's any specifics from the granting agency that they want to see in these letters, because often they have specific things they ask for.
Exactly.
Right, totally.
Right.
Okay.
Let's write a letter to what they're asking for, if we're able to. Yeah.
Well, okay, this is where we talk to the expert CJ, because there's always these talking points. There's always this language that the people who basically authorize these grants look for. Is that correct?
Yeah, as Ron was alluding to, letters of support are tailored specifically to specific types of incentives. And to answer your question, I did take a look at the charge for the advisory committee on the power plant future, and it does say support Cayuga operating company, and it's seeking of state funds and or other incentives, presumably could be grants, could be renewable energy credits, whatever it is, to ensure the power plant transition if in the best interest of the Lansing community. So that's directly from the resolution that enabled them, their existence. So anyway, yeah, if you want to call them and then have them pass everything on, that's great. I can email them, whatever works. It's cool.
Are you in the office tomorrow, CJ?
Absolutely.
Okay, I'll see you in the morning with the comments. Okay.
Okay, that's great.
Thank you. Okay. Thank you, Bronwyn, as always.
Yeah. Thanks all.
I appreciate your insight. And yes, these advisory boards are there for a purpose. It's just that, once again, I think we have a tighter window that I would like, especially since we lost. Okay, Doug, do you have any else? Doug,
Planning board meeting, 24th of August. Quite a few action items that were taken. We're at the Britton Woods development off Trip Hammer Road. I believe was approved. So that's a nice little thing going in off of Trip Hammer. The Hearts project on Maple Avenue, I think we tabled for some more information and from not only the applicant, but from other things. Had a small development, was a joint development with on Burdick Hill Road with the village for a subdivision that was taken care of and passed. Topolesky project on Collins Road, minor subdivision was passed. We had a couple discussion items, project for the salt mine. They want to put a cover over to mitigate water on the salt. Obviously, that would ultimately end up in the lake. They're quite a huge project, actually. They're covering an entire salt pad. That's in the sketch plan phase. And I believe they have to go through a height variance. And the last project on that night was the Cuba Lake National Bank branch, which is on the corner of Franklin and Trip Hammer. And that's in a sketch plan phase as well. I had a meeting this Monday, and Joe alluded to it in his report. I'm gonna go a little deeper. Find my notes. Talked about the short-term rentals, Airbnb, VBRO. Basically what we do with it. Sandy Conlon had no report that night with her committee on that. However, I did see, or I did hear yesterday on the radio, WHCU or whatever it is, that the county is actually starting to consider logging all the short-term rentals and trying to get a registry of what's going on with that. So basically at that time, we kind of tabled it, the planning department, excuse me, trying to, the planning board tabled it and wanted to see what the county could come up with as well. Biggest problem with that would be, once again, inspections, fire inspections every year, taxing our departments, building department, code enforcement department. But with what I heard yesterday, it was kind of a good segue to that, was the county's actually tackling this as well. And fortunately, if that comes up, we could use that as an enforcement opportunity too, if there was something wrong with one of these short-term rental issues. And that segues into Lynn Davidson talked to us. He actually came in, believe 4 months ago, and the privilege of the floor, and brought up the comment and the need for noise ordinance in our town. The planning board stopped short of trying to recommend it, based once again on enforcement. But I think the planning board would like us to do something with that. And Lynn Davidson actually cited that Cuba County has one. Why can they do it and we can't? I guess I kind of agree with that that thought process. But that's all I got. So at this point, and any questions CJ can answer. I'm just kidding. I'll try.
No worries. I actually was just going to follow up to Doug's comments about the Cuba County noise ordinance piece, to say that I did reach out to Guy, as I know he does a significant amount of work up there as well, about the county noise ordinance law. And he mentioned that he was reaching out to them to clarify whether it was actually a county noise local law, or whether it was just by municipality. So anyway, just mentioning that.
Okay. Anything else, Doug?
That's it.
Okay, Joe?
Yeah, I don't want to repeat everything I mailed out, but I do want to, say a couple of things, starting off with the TCOG meeting. I want to appreciate Ed for sending out some suggestions for different pod locations. Solution, calling for the state to allocate funding for local emergency services. Been gathering information, and we got a really nice presentation from Chuck Sherwin from TCAD talking about the dark fiber cable that it's being, hopefully, the grant will be approved to bring it up along the lake for the potential data center. So I think we're doing a lot in terms of getting information together. I don't think we have any answers yet for anything, but that's been pretty good. One of the things that came up at the planning board that I want to highlight and discuss here is the problem CJ described in terms of doing Zoom calls and giving presentations that are visible both at the boardroom and on Zoom. And I think we have some technical issues that might require doing something like getting a big screen TV on the wall so that people in the room can see what's on the Zoom call and thus be able to do presentations for everybody. It looks like meetings are far more attended via Zoom than they ever were in person. And I think we should consider and, ask Pat to look into how much it would cost to get the equipment set up so that presentations can be done simultaneously for people in the boardroom and people online watching the meetings.
Okay, Joe, why don't you send him an email? Give him some specifics and I think we have some in our reserve for technology and we can give it serious consideration.
I just wanted to get kind of I wanted to get a feel of the board to make sure that everyone was on board with that.
Well, I think the numbers are going to be number one, what's the scope of work? To use CJ's term, and what's the cost of doing it? Number two, is this going to be a long-term type of plan? I suspect it is for a while. There has been some talk about bringing the planning board back in. I have concerns about that considering the average age is about, 65, 70. God forbid, one of them gets sick because these things are asymptomatic sometimes. And I know it does lose some of the impact, unfortunately, of in-house meetings, which is unfortunate. But I'm also concerned about our board members too, whether it be, in this case, planning board. So my suggestion is to maybe reach out to Pat, give him some ideas of what you're thinking of. Maybe he can brainstorm with you a little bit and come up with something, whether it's exactly what you want, or maybe he can add to it and come up with a price and see where it goes from there. Because I think technology for a lot of different municipalities is going to be a major investment in the next few years. So personally, this is just me personally, I'm in favor of pursuing it to find out what the options are, what the cost is. I'll leave it up to the other board members. But I think if you came up with some sort of scope of work and price and send it to us, then we can have a serious discussion about that probably sooner than later.
I'm all for it. I think it would be good to pursue.
Did everyone see the email Pat sent us earlier today?
Yes, that's a little bit, go ahead, Doug, go on, elaborate on it.
Well, I had an estimate from Lava Integrated Technologies and a quote for cameras. I don't know. I guess the best thing to do in this situation, like you said, was probably get a hold of him and see how this could be done physically with whether it be a large screen TV, the cameras that can go to something we can, whatever. I think the cameras are more a security issue than that, but
correct. Those were for the outside. You're absolutely right.
So forgive me for that, but I think the first step would check with that. So anyway, that's my 2 cents or 3 cents.
If Joe, if you could get something to us ahead of time, we can discuss that at our next meeting.
I will try to do it. I'm going to rope CJ into this too, because she's the one that brought up the initial problems, and I want to make sure whatever solution we come with actually solves all the issues she's having.
If I can advise, please use her only as needed. Her plate's full. That means if she has to do another project, she's going to take something off. So
Yeah, I just want to mention I did. I brought that up as kind of a technical issue. I I had asked folks who were presenting here at Town Hall to bring a laptop with very specific outputs, which are common, to most, modern, laptops or, computers. And they simply did not. And so they were not able to project. And so it was kind of maybe a bit of miscommunication, but also kind of exposed some of the, shall we say, shortcomings of trying to present both in person and Zoom simultaneously. It's a little bit of magic, I guess. So anyway, yeah, I'm happy to help if I can. And I did actually mention it to Pat earlier today. So.
Okay.
I will follow up.
Thank you. And I'll use this as just a general comment. You saw CJ's 6 months, what she did, her work, and also her work for next year. I mean, she's pretty well loaded. And once again, we have a lot of projects we're trying to finish up. And if this doesn't sound like it's going to take a lot of time, easy for me to say, it's not me. But in general, let's be careful that we don't use her as the go-to person, but we use her maybe as someone who said, geez, what do you think about this? Here's my design, blah, 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 as opposed to, can you run with this? I think we need to transition to that more and more. That's just a comment, not a criticism. But that also brings up the point.
That's exactly what I want to do.
Good, thank you. That's exactly what, as we talk about this project, we may also talk about Pat's project. I don't know if you want to talk about it in our working session or lump it into our next meeting, but we'll get to that in a few minutes. Anything else, Joe?
Yeah, I got a couple more things. I just want to point out at the Transportation Council meeting that they mentioned that the Ludlowville Bridge is a couple of weeks behind due to a backlog of concrete orders and issues around meeting the requirements of Bolton Point for the temporary water main. Though it's behind at the moment, they're still expecting to get it done before New York State starts destruction on the Route 34 Salmon Creek Bridge. And point out that they do have a bid that they've accepted for that bridge and that they're hoping to grant it on November 1st. And they're going to start demolishing the big bridge sometime this winter. They want to really get moving on that. And the final thing I want to bring up is I would like to talk about some of the revisions to the ethics code that we were talking about, because I think there were some issues that came up from our ethics board that I'm not really sure about, and I want to get more clarity on them. Is this a good time, or do you want to do that later in the meeting?
Well, what I'd like to do is if you send them to me in an email so we can at least have time to think about them.
I did. I got no responses.
Well, there's your answer. Well, it's not on our agenda tonight. I'd like to put it on our agenda for next month and discuss it then. Because it's not going to be a 5-minute conversation.
And see if we can't get some of the issues that the Board of Ethics put out into our revisions, because I think they made some interesting points, and I think we need to, if we're going to revise it, work those suggested revisions in as well.
Okay, we also looked at the Tompkins County ethics booklet they have.
Yes.
All right, so we'll make that an agenda item for our next full meeting, which is in October 21st, okay?
Okay, thank you.
Okay, anything else?
No, I'm done right now. Thank you.
Okay. Couple things real quick before we jump into our work session. We did the refinancing for the bond, not the band, not the barn, the bond, as we lumped various amounts of whether it be a sewer district or the Bone Plain Road water tank or consolidated district number 2, consolidated district number 4, and there's another one. I think there's like 4 districts in a sewer district that we lumped together. And the rate was less than 2%. for that. And they all have different expiration dates on them. It's a bit of a challenge for Charmaine as she tracks this. One of the good news is, well, I have good news and bad news. I think you call it bad news. The bad news is that Consolidated Water District number 2, their annual payment went from $206.44 up to $212.95 for 2021. So it went up basically $6.51. And number 2 is the spurs that actually go into number 4 on both ends, from Auburn Road to Ridge Road and also on East Shore. The good news is number 4, that has now been fully financed, and their debt service per year has dropped $182. It went from $797 down to $615. So my attaboys go out to the highway department for being so efficient. So from now on, it looks like the residents in district number 4 will be paying $182 less a year. So that's all good as far as their debt service goes. What else? Sewer district number 1, since I'm wrapping up infrastructure again, that we're waiting for easements from the village of Lansing before we move forward with that. I can't think of anything else with water districts. Number 6, the Water and Sewer Advisory Board will be sending a letter to the town board for their decision about district number 6. And that will be official, and hopefully that'll be done by our next meeting. I think number 5 we did tonight. Thank you for getting in front of this. As once again, we're going to be very aggressive about this infrastructure, and that's all I have for now because we have more discussions. Anything else from our town clerk or attorney? We're all good? Good, thank you. So, you want to take a 5-minute break, or do you want to go right into working sessions? You okay? Okay. Okay. Let's move on then. Watershed projects, Brown and CJ.
Like I said earlier, I just wanted to make sure that there weren't any other watershed related projects that we wanted to move forward to see about getting funding for. CJ can speak more to the one that we are looking for funding for, but I don't know if there's anything else that's been discussed over the years that maybe we should bring to the forefront now.
Well, sometimes it's timing. Sometimes we do these things like Salmon Creek, and all of a sudden, magically, now it's time. And that was the 20-year overnight success. But you know, I'm going to rely on you, Bronwyn. I'm going to rely on CJ. You're our eyes and ears. So, CJ, do you see anything out there?
Yeah, so the project that I sent along to Central New York Regional Planning and Development Board, who is managing the priority projects for the intermunicipal organization. Oof, that's a lot going on. Nevertheless, I did send them on at the stream bank stabilization project on Salmon Creek within Myers Park. Remember some time ago we were trying to get county stream bank stabilization money to do that project, but then that funding was not available. Oh, yes, I should probably mention that 3 different streams of funding have dried up from county. One of them is the Parks and Trails grant money. One's the housing affordability, and one's the stream corridor funds. So I figured we could try to shift that to another pot of money. But that said, I can't stress enough that most of the priority projects are identified through the cooperation of the Highway Department and Tompkins County Soil and Water Conservation District, who's probably looking at huge budget shortfalls in the face of the water quality improvement project money through DEC that's normally available through the CFA is kaput for now. So I would just say that we just have to continue encouraging that conversation between and a productive relationship between Highway Department and Tompkins County Soil and Water. That's one of the best way to get watershed projects done, really. So that's it from me.
And from that aspect?
Nope, that's what I was wanting to talk about. Thanks, CJ.
Let me just circle back here, not to beat a dead horse about this fly ash. I talked to Doug Roll about this and John Marabella after our presentation with S Power. And I said, this is a really big concern for us. And I said, can you give us any information on how this is mitigated? And they said, basically, there is a rubber membrane that goes underneath it. There is a rubber membrane that goes on top of it. It's sealed and it is pressure tested, like an inner tube. And so nothing goes in and nothing goes out. Now then the DEC has to sign off on it. So there is a process that goes through. And one thing I'm asking, or will ask them, is for more detail that they can share with the two advisory boards that are looking at this letter of support for S Power. I think the more information, the more accurate information we have about how the process is to cap this, I think hopefully it'll calm some people's fears. I'm concerned about this also, especially someone who's pushing so hard to get water pipes into everybody's house from the lake. So I'm invested in this a lot. So I have a tremendous amount of concern about this, but I want to give everybody accurate information what the process is about. That's all I'm going to say about that for right now. But I think they can give us a little more detail what the process is about. And Brown, you can share this with the different committees. Maybe this will add more to the information base. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So we talked about letter of support. I'll talk about budget updates in a moment. Parking lot lights and cameras. Doug made some reference to that earlier. That's something we need to address tonight with allocation of money. That's something we need to have a discussion with Pat about in the future and do this October 21st. Does anybody have any information on this? All I saw was an invoice tonight. That's it. I didn't see, was there any email? I'm looking for the email that goes along with it. All I see is that here's the invoice. Does that mean you want to do it? Or does that mean you want to talk to him first? And anybody can chime in on this one.
I thought we were being asked to actually spend the money to do it. Is Pat still around?
His first email said, I'm assuming it'll need to be put out to bid. Is that the case?
Well, I don't know. I guess maybe we need to allocate a certain amount of money for this project. Or we wait until October 21st, and by that time you give us more information. Those are some options. Because we're going to have to allocate this money. Perhaps if you wait a moment, I'll see if I can text it. Maybe you can chime in. So just give me a moment, please. If we want to do something now, it's better to do it now than later, since we've already talked about this already. In the meantime, you want to talk about Steve Farkas? We'll circle back.
I guess so. Then everyone's aware that Steve Farkas passed away in August. He was our town supervisor, I think in the early 2000s. I could be wrong on that. And I was just wondering if there's any way we can honor him or at least send a really nice letter to his family. But I was thinking maybe we should start a wall, an honor wall of the different supervisors that have served us in the past. And I think that's a really, I think if we could put a little bit of history into our building, and when people come and see this, whether they're relatives, friends, or school children, I think it's really interesting to see who served as supervisor in our town and what year.
I should probably recuse myself.
I like Andrew's idea, and I would support doing some kind of wall. I know the city has a picture of all the portraits of the mayors going all
Yeah, I mean, you know, we have pretty artwork on, and it changes, but
the that I probably wouldn't have looked up otherwise. So I think that's a great idea, Andrew.
oh, good.
I also think sending a letter of sympathy to the family from the town makes a lot of sense. I hadn't realized he had passed away, but I think we definitely should recognize his time here for sure.
Right.
I agree.
And personally, I think he was a very good supervisor, but,
He was just a good person.
and he's a really good person, and he worked for the Division for Youth for many years, and yeah, he contributed a lot to our town.
Maybe Guy can comment more on this, but I believe he actually got endorsed by both parties.
I think that's true.
1 year when he ran, he
Yeah.
actually got endorsed by both parties, so no one ran against him. That usually is a huge statement right there about being a public servant. You want to comment on this at all? I mean,
No, he was a longtime personal friend, and I've spent some time with the family since, but I think anything that recognizes anybody who serves is probably a useful thing.
excuse me a moment.
Okay, I don't know if we have anything on record where we have sent a letter to a family. I guess we can figure out one. And then I think we should start considering where we want the history of our supervisors.
Perhaps the board can authorize Ed to send a letter coming from the whole board to the family of Steve Farkas. I don't know if we need a motion for that, but to say it's coming from all of us. And I would love to see some kind of space in the town hall, like you're describing, set up for a history of our supervisors. And maybe some other historical pictures and stuff to be added in as well.
Okay, I can, I'd be willing to talk to Louise Burnett in hopes that things were documented over the years, history. And, yeah, I'll ask Ed if we could just have a formal letter, letterhead expressing our condolences, but more honoring him. I mean, he had been ill and it's very sad when somebody dies, but also we all know that eventually we're gonna die, whether we die in good health or poor health. But, sort of telling the family that this particular board appreciated what he did. All right, Ed's coming back.
What did you decide?
No, we're just talking about.
Brainstorming?
A formal letter that you would sign and that we could send to the family.
Yeah, we do like a park.
We volunteered you to write it, Ed.
Oh, I was told?
That's what happens when you leave the room, you don't know.
I'm in trouble. I'm outmatched already. You haven't been here for what, a year, and I'm already outmatched. Let's see if I can compose something, okay? Okay, you want to move on then, or you will? Okay. So I did have a talk with Patrick while everyone decided what to do with this. He recommends putting this thing out to bid. If the board recommends that, he'll put the bid out tomorrow. Put the cameras outside for the security. We have had people put their garbage in our dumpster. We had one person already was visited by the state troopers. He thought because he paid taxes, he could keep doing that. Other people seem to want to do this, and I think the cameras would be helpful. We also had people that write down license plates, and we will keep following up on that. So that's where we stand. But if everybody is in agreement, I don't know if we need a motion for this, to have him put this out to bid? I mean, or we can just, I can just tell him and then we can either approve it or not approve it at our next meeting. What do people suggest?
Put it out to bid. Put it out to bid and we can approve it next meeting.
Okay. Brown, how you feel?
I would just ask
Go ahead.
Guy what, I approve.
All right. You're breaking up here.
I approve putting it out to bid, but I want to ask Guy what that process needs to be. Do we need
Understand.
to approve it?
I guess what Joe's asking is, because you're breaking up a little bit here, is what if there's a procedure that we have to go by? Is it a verbal to say, go ahead and put out the bid? We can always not refuse a bid or not. I guess we're looking for guidance.
Well, there's the town. There's the town procurement policy. There's general municipal law 103. And if it's other than an Article 8 public works project, you also have the option of putting it out as an overall best value bid as opposed to lowest qualified bid. And, you know, navigating that and you know, making sure that you've identified your specs appropriately, you know, that's the issue. There can be a lot of differential in quality in that marketplace in terms of the quality of the video, the quality of what you see in the dark or at night. And, you know, those are the types of things you might want to really understand what bid that comes in. It's going to be harder to figure out exactly what it is, but it's really sort of Patrick's ballpark, and I think he understands that better than most.
Yeah.
So the only thing I would tell him if you're asking him to put out the specs, since I think he knows what the specs are that he's looking for, is just to consider how he might want to weight different bids based upon the overall value. In other words, if someone provides more cameras, if you get 5 extra cameras at a cost of only $1,000 more, is that a better value? Because I think some of this is pretty subjective. So to the extent it's not a public works project, to the extent it's purely a procurement project, he might be able to go in that direction. But if he has questions, he can call.
We've had experience in the past when I think we did the cameras for the park. And we may want to just mimic that.
I think probably it's going to be very similar to that. And I think he's probably going to want to have similar architecture and infrastructure. But again, I think he knows that well enough to put it out to bid. The only thing I would just say is make sure he looks at the procurement policy and decides whether he wants to do best value or not best value. But if it's a public works project, if it's an official capital improvement, you don't have a choice. It's got to be lowest bidder.
Okay. Thank you.
You used to have a choice, but you don't as of about 2 years ago.
All right. So we have some guidelines.
But do we need a resolution to ask them to do that, or we just ask them?
Well, traditionally, we've done something to approve it because there's been a bid package with a contract and a whole bunch of stuff in it so that you could turnkey it. But that's not technically required. It's just a different form of doing it, like the bid packages that you see from Dave or from me. Technically, the only thing that the town board has to approve, because this is ongoing agency management type stuff, is the bid when it comes out. You have to approve the bid for the contract then.
Correct.
And again, I mean, if you want to have a contract in place in advance and everything like that, then you're talking a different level of issue. And considering that we've done this once or twice already, that's probably overkill. You're not spending, you know, $400,000 on materials for a water district. Putting in cameras to protect that all. I think it's quantitatively different as well as qualitatively different, but you guys decide. I would just authorize them to do it because it's part of ongoing day-to-day agency management, and just no contract is awarded until such time as the bidder's been qualified, the bid has been qualified, the board's approved it.
So even if we do a motion tonight to authorize him to put the bids out, we still have the final say on if it's acceptable or not.
Right, but you don't even have to do a motion. I mean, it's just part of his job.
That's fine. I know the procurement policy, depending on what the value is of the, it directs you on how many bids you have to do and what the protocol is.
Right, and there might be some bid list packages out there, though, it's such a customized product. I think if he's recommending that it goes to bid, that's probably the direction we can go.
Okay, thank you. Do we have enough answers for tonight for that situation? Are we okay? Shall we move on? Move on? Okay.
Move on.
All right. Talk about the budget for a minute. So sales tax seems to be the elephant in the room here. So I went through the data. Of course, whatever happens, once you do this, next day you get the next monthly allocation. So right now we have 7 months. In 7 months, we're at $802,709. We're a little bit behind last year by about, my figures are here. I did the projections actually for the whole year. And if we continue at this level of 85% for the next 5 months, we'll have a deficit or a decrease of $119,475, roughly. 474 and change. $119,474 decrease sales tax revenue that we didn't get that we projected. We would have projected $1,599,290, and it looks like the projection will actually come in. If it stays this way, at $1,479,815 and change. Now, keep in mind that 20% of that goes to planning and code, 80% goes to the highway. So you got 20% of that figure goes to B, and 80% goes to DB. It used to be 82 and 18, but since CJ came on board, there's nothing personal against you, CJ, because you're fantastic in my opinion. It nudged it up because she's full-time with benefits, so that nudged it up to 2% more for the planning and code. Having said that, the $119,474 deficit, if you break that down into the highway and the code and planner, so the highway is going to be decreasing by $95,579.96, and that's the DB, and the B, which is the planner and code, will be decreasing by $23,894.99. So that's what we're decreasing by. What does that mean? The calculations I've done right now is that we still have plenty of money in the B and the DB fund we're still over our 6 months allocation. If we add both those together with the projections, it looks like we're about 8 months instead of 6, which is about $283,396 over. I'm giving you all this background information because when you look at our budget, you'll find out in the budget, when you compare this year to last year, and this is just a brief overview, because this is awful hard to swallow in one meeting on the 30th. That's why I asked you for those questions and everything. But when you go through the A funds and the B funds and the DB funds and everything, you're going to find out that this year, we're going to use less in fund balance from the A and DA together. Of course, unless you change your minds, in which you can change this budget. But basically, we're looking at $108,000 going into the A fund this year, nothing going into the DA fund. Last year was 155 total, so it's been decreasing. We would have had less this year, but our revenue streams with dogs and bail and everything else that were going on have been down this year. So consequently, we had to use a little bit more fund balance because our goal is to get to a ZB, a zero-based budget where you don't have to use fund balance at all. So just keep that in mind. The other reason I'm saying this is for background music or background information is that the CHIPS money looks like that's going to be available this year. That's $200,000 that Cricket puts in. That's a reimbursement for $200,000 of road maintenance. He has $400,000 in road maintenance. He's only going to use $200,000, so that $200,000 comes back in. He also means that this extra $200,000 he's not using collapses back into the DB fund also. And there are other grants they're looking for right now to make up that 80 grand. That's where the 480 comes from. Why am I saying all this? Because I'm looking to use about 250,000 out of DB to balance that. So it goes out and comes back in, still having his 400,000 for his road maintenance next year, because we're still going to be hopefully in phase 4 throughout the full year, which means our sales tax should be a little bit healthier. Having said that, another piece of the puzzle now is that something new, the governor will take the first $500,000 of our sales tax out for the county. That's gone. He's going to use that to address concerns with nursing homes. That's the latest I heard. So right off the top, the county's lost $500,000 in sales tax. Does that mean that we're going to be more than 15% next year, 20% next year, 10% next year? I don't know. What I'm trying to do is give our highway superintendent as much flexibility, and I trust him, just like this year, he took it upon himself. He could have used all $400,000 this year for road maintenance, but he didn't. What he did is he's smart. He went into the drainage districts, which are a separate taxing entity, and which were need to be done, and he basically brought those up to where they should be. So that means that the drainage districts were paying for a lot of the labor this year also. So what he did is he found a different pot of money. And that's what you do. A very smart man, in my opinion. He runs it like a business. What that means is that, in my opinion, we should respect his wishes for $400,000 next year in the DB for road maintenance, knowing that if we still have this situation where we don't get the full amount or we don't get 85%, he's willing to cut it back again. But I'll plant those seeds with you at this time. Overall, I think we're looking very well. We'll see how much collapses back into fund balances this year because of lack of use. And we'll just have to let it play out. And each month will be better and better. The projections for mortgage tax is likely it'll be above our average, excuse me, of 250,000. So that will add towards the A fund. So these moving targets, they get a little bit better every time, and probably right on cue, we'll probably get our sales tax tomorrow. I'll have to do all the calculations again, which are fine. I'm getting really good at this stuff. So I plant those seeds with you right now. If you have any questions, please reach out to me, reach out to Charmaine, reach out to the department heads. You'll get your 5-year spreadsheets in your boxes tomorrow. They'll also be emailed to you. You can look over the trends. If you have any questions, ask ahead of time. There are no dumb questions. Okay, so ask, because this is an educational process for everybody. Even someone like myself, this is my 9th time doing it. I learn more every time. So I'll leave that with you on that. You want to take a break or you want to go to executive session? You're okay?
I'm okay.
Okay. You there? Yeah, just all you like to do is turn off the screen and go for a few minutes, right? I mean, so we're going to go to executive session, and this will be, yes. You okay?
That was just a,
Okay. So usually we do this like,
Are you okay?
you okay?
yeah.
So this is for the proposed acquisition, sale, lease of real property when publicity might affect value. So I will move to go in executive session.
I second.
Okay, so you're gonna have to help me. All in favor?
I.
Aye.
Got 5 ayes.
Okay. Opposed?
One of these times.
Okay.
Hopefully this will be quick.
Ed, did you want me to stay for this, or should
Well, who's going to turn off the, I mean, I guess we should be.
No, it's fine. I can just turn the meeting over to you and go. That's cool. I just wanted to make sure you didn't.
And then we'll come get you when we need to shut it off, whatever.
Nope. I can, well, let's see.
Turn it off from here. Do you know how to do that?
No. CJ, why don't you give us about 15 minutes? Can you do that?
Okay, perfect. Yep, that's great. I'll just tune out.
Thank you.
But we want it to not be broadcasting on YouTube.
Right. So is it on?
So
Right, exactly. So that's what I'm saying. If
Yes.
you need me to come back, then I will just
Correct.
lurk about. But
So
if you
take
don't
us-
need me to come back,